Breaking news, Sean Diddy Combs was arrested in Manhattan after grand jury indictment. The music mogul has been under mounting scrutiny, obviously, since this lawsuit by his former girlfriend, Cassie, and others. But now we have reports here. Here it is. Federal investigation was arrested in Manhattan on Monday evening after grand jury indicted him. According to a person familiar with the indictment, who was not authorized to speak publicly, the indictment is sealed and the charges were not announced. But the person familiar with the prosecution said they believe Mr. Combs was being charged with racketeering and trafficking. Statement from Mr. Combs' legal team said they were disappointed with the decision to prosecute him and noted that he had been cooperative with the investigation and had voluntarily relocated to New York last week in anticipation of these charges. So I guess, Chris, that's my first question. If they're going to go there, is that something they're going to let Diddy's team know? By the way, it's actually going to come?
Yeah, so a lot of times they'll be in touch, the federal prosecutor will be in touch with the defense attorney to arrange for a surrender, because when you're indicted like this, you need to be hard booked. So he needs to go in, get fingerprinted and get photographed and get booked, and then make arrangements for his release. So that would have been coordinated if they feel that there's no risk of flight. If the prosecutor believes that he might bail or commit further crimes, then they're just going to go and grab him. So now his attorney's statement says that he's relocated or has been living, I guess, in some hotel in New York or Manhattan for the last week. So it sounds like this has been going on for quite a bit. But the TMZ reporting, there was some updated reporting a little bit ago saying that they actually were planning the surrender tomorrow, Tuesday. I'm losing track of time here. What day is it? I'm sorry.
Today's Monday, Tuesday.
Monday. Okay. So they were planning on doing it Tuesday, but they moved it up to today. And it sounded like in quite a bit of a hurry, and that they also searched his hotel room. So if that reporting is correct by TMZ, that leads me to believe that the federal prosecutor or law enforcement was monitoring Diddy, felt that there was some risk that he would either flee, commit further crimes, destroy evidence, or intimidate witnesses, something like that. They said, we can't let him loose, swooped in, picked him up, hard booked him, and then also searched his hotel room for stuff. So this is a very bad start to a really awful case for him.
Yeah, that's epic. I mean, that's big. That's abnormal, I would imagine. If they have scheduled and they're all assuming all parties are being fair and doing it the way they're supposed to. Yeah, you don't swoop in the night earlier, I imagine, right?
Yeah, that's really unusual, because the fact that they would have given him the heads up potentially a week ago, said, hey, come out to New York. This is happening. You're going to make arrangements. It's going to go to, I mean, they're making an appointment with this guy. And so obviously when they were doing that, they felt that he was not a risk of fleeing or committing crimes, destroying evidence, or threatening witnesses. So something radically changed today that would have, turned this whole thing upside down. So how that affects his ability to be released and how quickly he'll be released is yet to be seen.
So he's arrested. This officially now this means, just so we're clear on what the terms are, he's arrested and now taken into federal custody. Does that traditionally mean he's going to be behind bars or like in the station? What does this typically mean when this type of thing happens?
So most of the time, especially when it's prearranged, he has already worked out the conditions for release. So that can be as simple as just saying, hey, I promise to appear at all court appearances. I promise not to commit crimes. I will stay in New York or the US, whatever the terms are. Surrender his passport, maybe post a bond, maybe subject himself to electronic monitoring, so it would kind of be one of those or all of those things that they would have negotiated in advance. And, but he does have to be booked. So he's got to be booked and, taken before a magistrate and all that stuff. So that just goes with the territory. And it sounds like it was on track for him Tuesday to go in there quietly and walk out. And we've been reading the story tomorrow instead of this evening. So if he did something serious, or he's accused of doing something serious, today, let's say, then they might say, hey, we're no longer agreeable to those conditions of release, and they might have to fight before the judge as to his being released from custody.
So it's fascinating. So his team, and clearly they've known for a little while, probably more than any of us knew what was coming. I guess you are prepared for that. The grand jury. So they use the grand jury to ensure that the case is up to snuff, right? Just for people to understand, the way this is all done is they've hired and gotten, not hired, but gotten jurors to sit there. They get to plead this case pretty much in private, right? Or does Diddy's team get to witness this as well? Is this a way to, or is this just a soft trial really to ensure the evidence they have will be held up based on jurors' reactions?
Sure. So it's a little confusing with the terms, but in the federal system and a serious crime like this, they typically going to start this with impaneling a grand jury. So it's not the regular type of jury that you see on TV that 12 people or whatever sitting in a box that are pulled from public. This is sometimes a standing grand jury or a special grand jury that's impaneled for the purpose of determining whether there's probable cause to issue an indictment here. And so these folks would have been presented a case by the prosecutor. Diddy really is not having much right to have any participation in this process. And so that's just done supposedly to make sure that there's evidence that a crime has actually been committed and that he has done so sufficient to issue criminal charges and for him to be arrested or booked for it. So again, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's basically the concept. Now, certainly that's the initial charge. He'll be taken before a judge. The prosecutor can amend the charges so they can do a superseding indictment. So the initial charges don't necessarily mean the last charges. So those might change over time. Certainly now Diddy's would come in and start asserting his defenses. And, but I'm sure the prosecutor was very careful. They certainly took their time. The last time we reported on this, we were wondering what's taking so long and what are they doing behind the scenes? And they did these raids months ago, and we kind of surmised that they were putting the squeeze on witnesses and other maybe potential targets to see if they would turn evidence against Diddy. And they were going to take their time, and once they had the goods, they were going to hit him. So it sounds like that's happened. This is going to be the beginning of a potentially long saga. Those RICO and other charges that we've heard that might have been he might have been indicted for are very serious. It's not something like, Timberlake or somebody you can just say, hey, let me just take some deal and walk out with no time. That's going to be very difficult for Diddy to make a deal on that without some substantial prison time being requested of him. And if he's not thinking that is worthy, then it goes to trial.
Kim has joined the chat as well. Welcome, Kim. Thank you for helping break this for me. And Kim will be covering this on It's Kim. Make sure you're supporting her. While we have Mr. Melchor, I wanted to ask, because there's another part of this quote, and I want to get your thoughts too, Kim, but Diddy's lawyer added, this I found very telling. I hadn't seen this one yet. Diddy is an imperfect person, but he's not a criminal. To his credit, Mr. Combs has been nothing but cooperative with the investigation, relocated to New York, yada, yada. Please reserve your judgment until you have all the facts. These are the acts of an innocent man with nothing to hide, and he looks forward to clearing his name in court. I mean, it's just laughable for me to hear that, given the way he lied about Cassie, the way that he and his attorneys tried so hard to defame her, deny her, she's a liar, they're all clout chasers, et cetera, et cetera. I guess, I assume we all agree on that, but I guess my bigger question is it common for a case this big, for a grand jury, all of the stuff, all the eyes, can you think of any, Christopher, where this doesn't net into something clearly pretty likely dangerous? Is there a likelihood in your mind that this could be an innocent man? What is the percentage in your brain, given the experience of these types of big cases, that you think there might be something we don't know?
Well, it's going to be difficult. So we saw the video with Cassie. So he clearly, abused her. There's no doubt about it. That's probably why they're admitting that he's imperfect at this point. So, but that's not a federal crime that he committed against her. That is a state crime that could have been prosecuted in the county of Los Angeles had that been reported at the time. So that's not what the criminal case is about. That could have been one of the predicate acts for the racketeering charge. So we really don't know exactly what they're going to charge him with. He does have a presumption of innocence in the United States, so that's important to note. That charges have been brought against people, and the whole case is imploded. And I mean, look at Alec Baldwin. You know, we were all
Yeah.
watching that case completely implode. Now, I know a lot of folks, question whether he should have been prosecuted to begin with, but that case unfolded before our very eyes. And so I would caution to saying, hey, it's a lot different to accuse somebody of something than to prove in a court of law that they did the crime.
There's gonna be a lot to report, but Kim, I want to get your thoughts. You've been covering this in great detail. Thanks for joining us and everything else. What are your thoughts as you see this finally taking shape?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think the one thing that is sticking out in my mind right now after reading that statement from his attorney, not a criminal. I'm pretty sure most of us saw that tape of Cassie. And I would define the behavior that we saw in that video as criminal. We may be
Mm-hmm.
past the statute of limitations at this point for that specific incident, but I do not believe that that was the first time nor the last time he treated anyone like that or did worse. And I am very excited to see him in custody. I have followed this case painfully closely and daily for months now. And the one thing that I kept seeing was this one quote that basically said they were trying to get a bulletproof case. The fact that we are here makes me believe that they have everything they need. And I think in the coming days, we're going to find out a lot. It's probably going to be very shocking. And I, tonight's a good night. Tonight's a good night.
It's true. It's like Christopher to say Kim's spot on. Like how dumb is it for them to make this mistake again to try to play like Cassie's in the wrong? The video evidence is undeniable. That is a criminal behavior, whether it's technically, because of the statute of limitations, etc. Isn't this just an idiotic start of a defense? I mean, for me, it makes me immediately think there is no defense. He's just doing what he's got to do, and he knows his client's guilty. Is that something you'd ever say when that tape dropped?
Well, that's what's so difficult about it, and I totally agree with Kim, but also got to understand that the federal case is not about Cassie. That it just can't be. I mean, that is not an act of racketeering, and it's not an act of trafficking necessarily. Now, maybe again, it could be part of a bigger, what we call predicate act. So maybe that was evidence of some larger enterprise that was going on. But just to be clear, like that, there's a difference between federal and state charges. The federal government has no authority to charge him for what he did to Cassie. That's purely a matter of state law, and that was never charged in the county of Los Angeles by deputy district attorney because it wasn't reported to the police, to my knowledge, at that time. So there's something much, much larger, and maybe the Cassie thing is part of that. But this it would have to be, again, a criminal enterprise, trafficking kind of thing, multiple victims, all different kinds of activities. And yes, I agree. These prosecutors are not going to act brashly. We saw that the raids happened on his houses months ago. That's the last time we reported on it. We're like, hey, this has gone on a long time. So obviously they've been patient. They've been putting the squeeze on people, threatening them with prosecution to come forward. So they probably have affidavits, statements under oath from witnesses, maybe other participants saying, yes, Diddy did all these things. But again, we have seen people sign statements and make confessions to things and have that completely unfold in court. So again, it looks horrible for him. If I was betting on this, I would say, odds are against Diddy, but also just cautioning that there have been quite a few people who have been prosecuted and then either completely vindicated, or the case even being dismissed. So it's very early to make any predictions yet.
Yeah, I mean, Alec Baldwin's a great case. We all watched that. We all agreed he was responsible as well as others. And boom, it's all out. Kim, any other questions for Christopher?
I've heard a lot about when it comes to RICO cases, the rate of conviction is very high. I'm interested to hear, would that statistic be true? Because like I've heard in like the upper like 90s percentage that if you are charged, that that's usually the way that it goes. Can you think of any cases that are RICO related that were like high profile that the person did evade charge or prison time, or I don't know how to word it. I hope that that makes sense.
No, I get it, and I think that that's probably true for a couple reasons. One is, the weight of the government on most people would be crushing. This isn't like they say, like Timberlake kind of thing, small case
No.
where anyone could probably afford a lawyer or mount a defense for. This is the full weight of the federal government on this guy's back. So even for Diddy, this is going to be extremely difficult. So most people will take a plea bargain because they're facing, gigantic sentences and huge attorney's fees. And so a lot of those will plead out. If they don't plead out and it goes to a jury trial, it's very difficult to defend against when you have, let's say, 40 offenses. Like say they're saying, hey, okay, Diddy, you're in this criminal enterprise. One of the events that we're charging you with as a predicate offense is what happened to Cassie. Let's play the tape. And so that could be a kidnapping. Legal definition is that movement against will. And some will say also for the purpose of doing further offense to her or keep her from reporting. He dragged her down the hallway. So we have sufficient movement for a kidnapping. Kidnapping is a predicate offense. Even though it's too late to charge her to state law, they can do it under federal law. So once they play that tape, it's game over. So now they got five.
But they're allowed. They'll be allowed to play that tape. Like that's not going to be something his people can push away.
Absolutely, because if they charge that as a predicate offense, and the only way would be kidnapping. And again, people can look at all this stuff and see what the so-called predicate offenses in a RICO case are. Battery, assault are not one of them. So kidnapping would be the one that I saw that would be on that tape. So they play that. All of a sudden, everyone on that jury is saying this is a bad guy and I want to convict him. And now the prosecutor strings together maybe 10 weaker predicate offenses and he gets cooked. So that's what I'm saying. If I had to bet on this, I would say, hey, he is in looking some really, really bad shape on this. But like I say, as an attorney, I've seen what appear to be strong cases become very weak over time. We got to remember that this is early stage. The government holds all the cards. They are the ones out there doing the interview, putting pressure on people. They're the ones bringing criminal charges. Diddy's the one, he can do an investigation, but he doesn't have any of those powers at this moment. Once, he's in this system now, he has a subpoena power. So now he can start getting records. There's going to be hearings and he may be able to turn it around. I don't know. I mean, like I say, it's hard to evaluate without seeing the evidence, which we've seen no evidence because we don't even know technically what the charges are yet.
Mm-hmm. And will we get evidence? Will they hold on to that evidence, or when will they start sort of letting that evidence come, and not until a trial? And how long until a trial happens? Sorry, Kim, we'll get to you next, but
sure. So we have this indictment, which is the charging document. Now, technically, that doesn't have to go into a whole lot of detail, but a lot of times in a higher profile case like this, they'll do what's called a speaking indictment. And that's really almost like a press release. So they're going to put in a lot of dates, times, names, and places in there. And because everyone's asking these questions and the government doesn't want to be attacked or think that they're overreaching or unfairly targeting this guy. So
that document's already made, and we'll probably get that tomorrow or the next day, you think?
Yeah. So right now it's sealed, but because he's been arrested and he'll be arraigned and all that stuff or whatever, brought before magistrate. So eventually that will be released and then we will get to see that. So that's going to then tell the story. And that'll obviously make it a lot more easy to evaluate. So that is the next step, is to get the indictment. And once we see that, we'll know a lot.
I have another question, but Kim, ask what you were going to say.
Okay, so I think the one question I have in my mind, and I hope I can word this correctly. Back in 1999, Diddy was involved in a shooting at Club New York alongside Jernnifer Lopez. They both were taken into custody. Jernnifer was, cleared, but Diddy did stand trial and was cleared of those charges. Shine ended up being prosecuted, was sent to prison for quite a while, and there have been a lot of questions with these civil lawsuits, particularly with Little Rods, where he has admitted or has written in the lawsuit that Diddy has bragged about bribing people and getting off on this case. And then we also did have law enforcement saying that everything past and present when it comes to Diddy is on the table. What would be the chances of an incident like the Club New York shooting uh, being included in these type of charges if they were to find something through the investigation?
Sure. So that could be, and one of the reasons is like the statute of limitations. Again, for folks who are not familiar with that term, there's a time limit generally for the prosecutor to bring criminal charges. Most criminal charges have a time limit. Some, like really horrible crimes, don't. So there's a time to bring charges. Now, obviously, that incident happened a long time ago, just like the Cassie incident happened a long time ago. But in a racketeering case, they can string together state offenses, means offenses that are not necessarily under federal law, but under state law, that are too old to be prosecuted, were never prosecuted, to put together proof of a criminal enterprise. So there's a list of predicate offenses for a RICO charge. And so we might find one or more of that in that incident. And if they can identify a predicate offense, then they can talk about it and they can say that is one of the offenses, along maybe with the Cassie kidnapping thing, to then string together this racketeering charge. We'll see.
Okay.
But they have to have more than that, you would think, right? There's more in this charging document, the one whatever pager we're going to get. I imagine, right? There are witnesses and stories that have yet to go public that they're holding on to. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because again, especially the trafficking one, they're not going to just say like, oh, somebody reported something and we're going to just, charge this guy. They're going to want witnesses. They're going to want corroborating evidence. So a lot of times they're not going to just rely on a he said, she said. So somebody's saying, hey, Diddy did this to me. Trust me. They're going to want corroboration. So let me see text messages, emails, photographs, hospital bills, reports, something to back up every element of their story, because they know Diddy's going to hire the best lawyers in the world to represent him on this. Those lawyers are going to examine every single statement that everyone has said against him. And they're going to try and poke holes in those, any inconsistencies that they can find, to saying, hey, jury, they lied in this one respect or were inaccurate in this one respect, so don't believe them in any respect. So that's what's going to happen. So the prosecutor anticipates that and is extraordinarily careful. And so if, they only need 3 or 5 charges, or they think they only need 3 or 5 charges, they're probably going to want 10 different offenses, because they figure, hey, if a couple of them we don't prove up, we still got plenty in the bank.
How much is a trial like this going to cost for him?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
This is going to be I imagine more expensive than most trials. And then to get the best of the best, they probably need multiple people doing multiple things. I'm just talking this case because he's had multiple. Does he have to hire multiple law firms with everything that's going on? What is explain that for people who don't really understand, because that's part of this too, I imagine, right? Drowning them in cost and lawsuits to try to help their case, right or wrong. At someone this powerful, it says here his net worth's around 600 million. Like, is there a point where it's like he's not going to be able to afford it?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be able to afford it, but I mean, the defense costs, I got to think, are easily $50 million. We don't know, how many different states the alleged activity occurred in. So, each state's going to have records and witnesses that need to be interviewed. It might even be international. This is going over many, many years of time. So, so there would be a face to the case, but that lawyer is going to be supported by multiple lawyers, probably multiple law firms. They can use some of these civil cases potentially to grab discovery. So there are rights of a criminal defendant to get information, but when you have a civil case, it's kind of unbelievable, but sometimes you have more rights to get information and compel statements in a civil case than you do a criminal case. So you may see him leveraging these cases that are filed against him to force those accusers or other witnesses to give testimony so he could use that for his criminal case. So it is a far-reaching, extraordinarily expensive effort. And his income is going to go down too. So his ability to earn is going to be decreased while he's hemorrhaging this legal fees.
Kim, you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. One of the things that has been reported as of late is that his net worth is plummeting at this point. And that is part of why some people are wondering why he's selling one of his homes and things of that nature. He doesn't have his shares in Revolt anymore. He's no longer with the alcohol brand that he was affiliated with. He has signed off the rights to various bad boy music artists in exchange, allegedly, for their NDAs, according to Aubrey O'Day. So I think it is going to be really interesting to see how expensive this gets, how fast it gets, and what this does to his empire, because it's already been suffering through these civil cases, and just because people don't want to be associated with him right now. I did have one question for Christopher Melchor, if that's all right.
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay. So we know right now that Keefe D is currently in custody to be tried for the unaliving of Tupac Shakur. And there have been rumors for a long time that Diddy may have had a role in that. Again, is it possible that that could be a part of this indictment, or would that be separate because it is currently a case in Las Vegas?
No, it could be. I don't know anything about that other than what I read in the news. And, the suspicion that I had was that, this person was just trying to get some attention here. And I don't know that Diddy had any involvement in that, but certainly if there's evidence of it, and there would have to be a connection then to this alleged criminal enterprise or trafficking ring that he potentially has been indicted for. So it's not just like, hey, let's just pull together the greatest hits of every bad thing that Diddy has done or accused of doing and put this in front of a jury. To be relevant, they have to make it part of this alleged criminal enterprise. So he could have done something a long time ago that was bad and criminal, but if it wasn't part of the alleged enterprise or trafficking, then they couldn't bring that up.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, and we've had a lot of people tuning in, and Christopher and Kim have been offering a lot of great insight on this, but for those of you unaware, yes, Sean Combs has been arrested in Manhattan after a grand jury indictment. The most telling thing here, as we were reporting on it, was Christopher pointed out that TMZ said this was supposed to happen tomorrow. Something happened that caused the feds to move in a day earlier, which, as Christopher said, and we all agree, something bad must have gone down. That's unusual. What does that mean? Like, he's trying to run, he's trying to burn evidence. What is your suspicion there, Christopher? What that is that they would push the whole thing up earlier?
So the things that come to mind would be, one, to flee the jurisdiction. So he's just like, hey, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison, so I'm getting out of the country.
Why wouldn't he have done that months ago when he was allowed?
Exactly. So I'm not buying that one. The other one would be destruction of evidence. So there's some kind of evidence in his possession, or he's directing somebody else to destroy some evidence. Another thing would be
you'd think he would have done that by now, because he would have, and that's illegal, obviously, if he's caught doing that. But then the evidence is gone. They can't really do anything at that point, right?
That's right. And they raided both of his homes. He's had plenty of time. So how would he do that within the course of the last couple of days? So I'm not really thinking that's very likely. The other one is threatening a witness. And this is where it could be, where let's say he's under all this pressure and he learns that somebody's cooperating or potentially going to flip, and he's trying to discourage that person from cooperating. So that would be a good reason. That's probably top of mind. To me, to think about what would happen. I mean, he could be committing other crimes, still trying to run the alleged enterprise or trafficking scheme. But I got to think, how is he really going to be doing that out of his hotel room while he's waiting to be arrested? That seems pretty brazen. So I got to think, again, it's all speculation, but maybe they think that he's trying to dissuade a witness.
Well, that's another whole thing of this. Sorry, just before I forget it, this fact that he's in a hotel room, is that, you think he did that knowing this was happening and it was just easier? Is that weirder to you, Christopher, that he's in a hotel room? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's his attorney's statement. I mean, he says he's been holed up here in Manhattan waiting for this to come down. So, which, definitely shows a great deal of cooperation. And I got to think it was also driving him crazy doing that. And another thing would be to look out for is he going to dissipate assets or, kind of make himself judgment proof, because part of the criminal prosecution could involve him disgorging a lot of money. If they're saying that he, has all this wealth as a result of the criminal enterprise, and they're going to try to forfeit that money. So we may see allegations of movement of money so that he has something for himself or his family at the end of this thing.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to ask, we had a question in the chat from Penny D saying, is bail actually on the table for him?
Yeah, so that could definitely be part of it. He has a right to bail. So usually that's not an impediment. It just depends on what the allegations are, and what in terms of, is there really any doubt that he's going to show up for court proceedings? Now, I would think not much, because if they said, hey, we're going to arrest you, you're going to be indicted soon, I need you to come to New York, and he goes to New York, that was a smart move on his part, just saying like, hey, there's really no risk that I'm going to leave. And, one of the main purposes of bail is to secure his attendance at court hearings. And they can do that probably most effectively through electronic monitoring. Rather than posting a bond, I mean, how much would the bond have to be? He's going to say, here, I'll post $1 million bond. Well, that's nothing for him. That's not going to just say, fine, I'll forfeit the bond and take off. The electronic monitoring would really provide the most protection to make sure that if he didn't show up in court, that they'd be able to find him, or if he tampered with the device, they'd be able to find him pretty quick. And
is he going to be in jail now at this point?
Well, I would think he would have been taken into custody. That could have been that booking process, basically with an appointment and cooperation, might have lasted an hour. But since it got accelerated, and again, it really is going to depend on why it got accelerated. I don't think that they just changed their mind. So they might say, hey, we're going to hold you for the night. And they may say, we're no longer willing to agree to these conditions of release based on whatever they're claiming happened, and have them hang out for the night and see a magistrate tomorrow morning.
Well, we're still here breaking stuff down. I want to give Christopher now, because I know it's late and I appreciate him here. We're going to be covering this obviously all week. And I assume it's safe to assume that we're going to get some information tomorrow as planned. Is that your expectation?
Yeah, I think that could be unsealed tomorrow, and certainly that's going to be an explosive document to go through. So once that happens, I'm happy to join again and we can walk through it.
Yeah, so big news. We've been waiting for a story, Kim. It just dropped in our feed. Thank goodness. I was so sick of talking about J-Lo, but she might be part of this too, guys. We'll see how it all plays out. What do you think of that theory, Christopher, before I let you go? I'm going to end you with a silly one. There's a theory out there that the divorce to Ben is because Suge Knight said it's because he found out about some evidence of J-Lo on those tapes. Do you think it could get that intense, or is that just even too silly for you?
Yeah, I don't think that's anything to do with anything. It's just my guess. Hey, I don't know anything, but I think that yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but it doesn't.
He's not saying no.
But I don't know about these kind of things.
He doesn't know. Well, I appreciate you, sir. I'm going to hang with you for a second, Kim. Christopher, I'll let you go. I know it's late. Thank you for calling in. We're going to have him back as soon as we get the charges. But, man, very insightful insight from you, sir. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you so
Make
much,
sure you're
Mr.
following CA_divorce. Make sure you have it open here. There it is, CA_divorce on Twitter. Support him. He'll be following this, I'm sure. And we will have him back as soon as we are able. And make sure you support It's Kim. Yeah, and thank you, Kim, for making me go online. We needed a hit. And, we had about almost 8,000 people. Kim is going to be covering this as well. Kim was about to go live and was gracious enough to come on here instead. So thank you. Make sure to support her as she covers this.
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to those butts, people. Literally. Looks like there will be a press conference tomorrow at 11:30. Well, we'll be live at tomorrow at 11 then. If that's
Off we
the
go
case.
then.
We will be here. Hit the subscribe. What did I tell you guys? Become part of the squad. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell for notifications. When you get that click the all. When you get those notifications, you smash that thumbs up like you just saw, and you leave a comment because it helps the engagement, gets us back into the power of the algorithm. Hold on to your butts.